Over the last decade, the indie RPG scene has been ablaze with titles attempting to capture the nostalgic magic of the 16-bit era while injecting modern gameplay sensibilities. One of them is Spark Ignite. Recently launched on Steam Early Access, this story-rich 2.5D pixel fantasy RPG draws visual inspiration from HD 2D pioneers such as Octopath Traveler and Triangle Strategy. But it seeks to establish its own unique identity with a darker, more flexible narrative and heavily choice-driven gameplay. The story is set against a backdrop of a war-torn kingdom where the ultimate prize is the Star God's Blessing, a legendary power said to grant a single wish every century. You follow the journey of two orphans, Ash and Clover, who are going on what they think is a holy pilgrimage, morphs into a bloody uncovering of dark truths surrounding the gods and the blessing itself. The narrative thrives on intentional moral ambivalence. There are no clear good or bad choices. Instead, every big choice you make has an effect on the beliefs, progress, and fate of your friends. It has many different endings, which makes the main story feel very personal and responsive to how you play. But right now, there are a lot of problems with delivering the story because of early access. The hours of operation are really bad. The early lore drops are hard to understand because they throw a lot of complicated in-world terms at you without any context to help you understand. Furthermore, the English localization is a glaring weak point. The text translation feels like it came straight from Google Translate, lacking the necessary edits for tone, emotional delivery, or cultural idioms. This makes the important character development in the early game feel flat, disconnected, and sometimes very hard to follow. Visually, Spark Ignite is an absolute treat and easily one of the game's major selling points. The 2.5D pixel art is beautiful, and the next-gen lighting turns the retro style into a cinematic work of art. You can see how carefully the environments were made, from the shine on a knight's armor to the warm, flickering fires in the local taverns. It's interesting that Ignicorvus Studios has been very open about how they develop games today. They have even said that they use generative AI to help them make rough drafts of character portraits and UI icons. After that, human artists make a lot of changes to the drafts, redraw them, and polish them. However, not all elements were redefined, like the character portrait remains in its raw AI form. However, the visual design is not without its significant drawbacks, and the current state is where the game's early access status begins to show its cracks. The most glaring issue currently plaguing the experience is the UI accessibility, specifically the font size. In an attempt to keep the screen uncluttered and cinematic, the developers have utilized fonts that are punishingly small. If you are playing on a traditional monitor, it might be manageable, but for Steam Deck users or those playing on a television from a couch, reading the dense, lore-heavy dialogue borders on painful. It's a frustrating oversight in a game that relies so heavily on text to deliver its emotional impact. The audio design is another weakness. There is an extreme lack of basic sound effects throughout the game. Swinging a sword, casting a magic spell, or interacting with the UI often occurs in complete and utter silence, significantly diminishing the impact of the otherwise deeply engaging combat. While the game does feature some beautiful classical background music, the sudden transitions and absence of ambient combat audio make it break immersion and make the environment feel hollow. The combat system is built on three important ideas: class synergy, action order, and unique character traits. This is not a game where you can lazily mash the attack button or rely on raw stats to win. Instead of sticking to the standard tank, healer, DPS trinity, the game forces you to actively combine companion abilities to create devastating combos. The initiative order is vital, requiring you to plan several moves ahead to control your party's actions and timing. Systems like the star resonance mechanic, which enhances the synergy between characters' abilities, further deepen the experience. Aside from the grid-based fighting, the game has a surprisingly open world, with many paths to choose from, hidden secrets, and different places to visit, such as ruined castles and busy towns. But where there is tactical depth, there is also the risk of pacing issues. Because it is an early access title, the game suffers from occasional balancing spikes. Some encounters feel like perfectly tuned puzzles, while others feel like insurmountable walls that require tedious grinding to overcome. There is also a fishing minigame included that is completely unenjoyable in its current state. It is important to remember that Spark Ignites is at the very beginning of its early access phase, projected to stay in this phase for roughly 9 to 15 months. The developers have promised open communication, transparency, and monthly updates with clear patch notes. This experience is definitely not for those who expect the game to already be quite polished, but if you're a fan of deep, calculated turn-based tactics and are willing to look past silent battles, UI clunkiness, and localization hiccups to support an ambitious indie vision, this title is worth investing in. So that wraps up our review. Don't forget to check our other indie game review and our indie game list. Thank you for watching, guys, and see you in the next video.